Hi, everyone. I'm Rick Hanson for the Global Compassion Coalition, and this is our special year-end event, Strong Hearts for Turbulent Times. And we're going to be joined in about half an hour with a very special guest, Professor Kristen Neff, who's one of the leading teachers and researchers, I think the leading teacher and researcher, frankly, worldwide, about the profoundly important matter of compassion for ourselves, self compassion. And we'll be doing some practice experientially with self compassion a little later on. And before that, I'll be with you just myself during the first half hour, and I'll be sharing with you some short experiential practices also for building a strong heart, including taking into account some of the underlying brain science for how to gradually weave these strengths into the fabric of your nervous system so that they're lasting, they're with you, and go with you wherever you are. Should be really great. We'll be opening it up for questions that we'll take from the comments in the chat. Feel free to put those comments in and I'll have a chance to see them. And also Rachel Ebanks Gold, who's operating behind the scene as mission control, she'll be foregrounding some of the key questions as well. So that's what we're here to do. And I really want to thank you for your participation and support for the Global Compassion Coalition. And I think it's really important to note that well over 1,000 people have registered for this event. We're doing it through StreamYard rather than other platforms that would enable us to see each other, because through StreamYard, we can stream it out, beam it out much more effectively than with Zoom. So we may not be able to see each other. I can't see you, you can't see each other, but we can know. We can know in our hearts that we are in the company, in the community of hundreds, even thousands of people right now who are intending to make this a better world, in part by developing good things inside themselves. And I feel touched by your presence here, really touched. So in terms of what we can explore, these days are especially, they feel particularly turbulent. That's one reason why the Global Compassion Coalition was founded, to start to form large coalitions, which have been what's been necessary most of the time throughout history to make things better. You form large coalitions of people and organizations that can be big enough to be strong enough to actually change systemic sources of suffering. I saw this in my youth in America in many ways in the 1960s and 1970s with the civil rights movement, women's rights, environmentalism, gay rights, anti-war, and other major movements of the time. They were effective because large collective action occurred. And that's our mission in the Global Compassion Coalition, to foster that kind of collective action. So I want to show you a little video in a moment here about our first year. We've been really going with a gusto for just about 6 months, actually. And so what you see is kind of the result of that, maybe a little longer. And just imagine what we'll be able to do together with your help in the coming year. So let's see the video right now that Rachel is going to show for us. Beautiful. I love that video. It makes me happy. And one of my personal favorite things in the Global Compassion Coalition, which you saw a little bit of in that video, is our Connectors, Compassion Connectors program that has gosh, close to 2,000 people now worldwide who are grassroots leaders and activists who are putting compassion into action at the local level. So important. And a great example of that comes from a woman named Susie. To protect her privacy, I won't use her last name. Susie from Malawi. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. So let's see a video now, a short video of Susie's work in Malawi.
Hello, I am Susan Zimbiri from Malawi, Zomba. I am a nurse by profession, and I'm continuing with my education in nursing. I did my diploma in nursing. Now I'm upgrading to bachelor's. So I'm still a student. I have this compassion with the older people here in Malawi. The elder people are discriminated, and people accuse them of witchcraft and bewitching other people. So they are often discriminated from the community and being isolated from the community. So it has been my compassion for them. I feel sorry for them. But meeting is GCC, it opened my eyes that I can actually reach for them and help them and show them that I love them and give the example to the community that these people are just people like us, and they are elders. They need respect and they need to be loved. So I started my first time as a connector. I went to do survey and I found out that many elder people are living alone, like they don't have people or relatives or children to take care of them. They are living alone in the wasted house, not cleaned, and has a lot of medical conditions. My first time being a connector, we went to the community, like villages surround us where I live in Zomba. So we met a lot of elder people, like we moved in a lot of houses, and we met a lot of them, almost 20, I think it was 20, and 14 of them were female and 6 of them were male elder people, and others were living with their relatives like children, grandchildren, and while others were living alone. So we met with this lady who were living alone, who hasn't had any visitor like since 4 years, and she was really happy to see us there, and she didn't allow us to go. She was like, you should stay a little bit longer, and we chatted with her. We promised her that we are going to be visiting her and chatting with her, and we promised that if God blessed us with something, we are going to give her some basic needs. Yeah.
Wow. It's so amazing, isn't it, to realize that as we are together here, right now in this moment around the world, there are so many people far away and close to hand who are living with really significant challenges. And so many of them, honestly, are truly preventable. So just to mention it in passing, I made a little contribution myself to Susie's project there and where she is. And I invite you more generally to really consider donating at year end now to the Global Compassion Coalition. I work for it for free, and your donations go very directly into supporting programs like the Connectors, as well as other things that we do. You can take a look, by the way, at the Global Compassion Coalition website, and you can find where to donate, but also you can see topics like climate change, women and girls, men and boys, mental health, healthcare, business, um, the economy, where we're working away. We're just beginning, but we've made a really strong start to address systemic causes of suffering. And so if you were able to donate, I would really welcome that. Any little bit helps. The more the better. We have to keep the lights on. It's the real world here. And through your financial support for this worthy cause, tax deductible, I might add, because we're a tax exempt organization, you can really help out. So I know that in the chat sidebar, let me just double check it. Rachel has put the link for the donation link and should be showing up. Yep, right away. There it is. Excellente. And she'll be putting it into the comments section a couple more times so you can see it easily. Anyway, so I just want to really thank you for your support. Besides outer change, we in the coalition, of course, focus on inner change as well. And you might want to take a real look at the guides and practices section on our website. We also do events like this one, and there are many of these kind of resources freely offered. Another reason to donate to the coalition, to support us in being able to offer these resources far and wide. A little bit later, as I mentioned, Professor Kristen Neff will be joining us. She also has practices on our website, and it's these kind of resources, outer and inner, the political and the personal, the global and the local. It's the intersection, the combination of these. That's the sweet spot for changing the world for the better. And it's in that sweet spot that the Global Compassion Coalition operates. So I just, again, want to appreciate you in advance if you can give us any financial support to this worthy cause. And now I'd like to kind of shift a little bit and start to focus on inner practices that you can do yourself to hardwire inner strengths into your own nervous system, into the fabric of your body for turbulent times. I'd like to offer 4 of my personal go-tos, and we'll do each of these in a fairly brief way, experientially, like any experiential practice. Go your own way, make use of what I'm offering here however you like. Feel free to ignore all of it if you want. Anyway, so we'll do them fairly briefly. This will also be recorded, and we'll make this program available later, of course, always free of charge, to you, and you can share it with others too, if you just want to do these experiential practices. And then afterward, if you have questions or comments, you can put them in the chat and I'll respond to them there. All right. Want to do a little practice together? I'm going to do it with you to strengthen my own heart for turbulent times. Okay. So first, let's take a couple of moments to feel increasingly stable in the place where you are. So you can look around a bit, and neurologically, when we look out and up, we tend to disengage from anxious ruminations and preoccupations and get more of a sense of things as a whole in a more global way and in ways that are calming and centering. So you orient. And in the orienting here, you can let it sink in to the extent it's true for you, and it's probably very true for you, that you're basically okay where you are. So you can afford to settle down in this place. You can feel its okayness, its stability. We all need a place to stand, which is an English translation of a Maori phrase from the people living in New Zealand. A place to stand. And locating our place in this simple way is foundational to that. Very simple, but deceptively powerful. Second, opening the heart. As we have a sense of open-heartedness and warm-heartedness that's inherently calming and stabilizing and gathering and soothing because it's a primal signal of safety to feel open hearted and connected with others. So you might want to bring to mind beings, one or more, that you care about, keeping it really simple, staying out of the drama if there is one, just the feeling of being with people that you like, that you appreciate, maybe even love. What's that feel like? Can you feel it right now? You can also help yourself to experience the sense of others who care about you. Again, keeping it really simple, disengaging from thoughts or wishes for more caring or different caring, etc., from others, all of which are valid, but focusing on the caring that is present, ways that you are actually in the present or have been in the past included. That's a form of caring for you, included or seen. Even if they don't agree with you, they're trying to understand. They're empathizing. They recognize you. Or times you have felt appreciated or know that you are valued and appreciated these days. Also, ways that you are liked, that there's friendliness, sincere friendliness coming towards you, even if they're not your best mate, even if it's a limited kind of relationship, the friendliness in it is real. You're liked. And then, of course, loved. Can you let yourself open into these experiences as a way to strengthen your own heart, gradually letting the sense of this to sink in? What's it feel like to be open-hearted? You might put a hand on your heart. You might make a little clockwise movement over the area of your heart if you relate to that. And you can really know, very importantly, that we can have a kind heart while also being firm, setting boundaries, asserting ourselves, being passionate in the cause of justice, including for ourselves and those in our immediate circle that we care about. You can have a warm heart while still being very strong toward the greater good. Okay? Imagine the year to come and imagine yourself approaching it with this open, warm heart. What are some of the ways that approaching the year with an open, warm heart could help it go well, at least in some ways? Okay. Third, tune into strength. What I mean by that is let's start by recall a time when you felt strong. Maybe you were enduring a really difficult, challenging period, perhaps in support of others. I think back on times I've spent caring for my parents, in the last year and months of their life. You just hang in there. That's a form of strength. There might be other times when you were physically active. I like being in wilderness. Maybe you've been out and about. Maybe you holding a yoga pose. Maybe you're just determined on the behalf of someone. See if you can get in touch with that again. The more able we are to access resources inside of various kinds, the more able we are to cope and to protect and preserve our well-being in the midst of challenges. So tuning into the strength that's there. while knowing that you can be strong, you can be determined, and still there are many things that are out of your control. The fact that you cannot force many things, I cannot force many results to occur, does not mean that we are not strongly doing the best we can. Our strength is independent of what we're able to accomplish, in the sense that it's not our fault. The results that occur, what's up to us is what's under our control. Tuning into the strengths you do have and coming from them as best you can. So here too, imagine approaching the year to come from a place that combines strength and warm-heartedness. All right? Consider the sweep of the year to come and see yourself moving through it with a strong and warm heart. Can you imagine some of the benefits for you and for others of approaching the year to come with a strong and warm heart? Good. And then fourth and last, finding inner peace. You might already be experiencing this blending of strength and warm-heartedness. Let's see if that can settle increasingly into a growing calm inside. Your body relaxing here and now, letting it relax, maybe with a long exhalation. Finding the sense in the present that you're basically all right right now. Whatever the future may hold, in the present, if you're basically okay, feeling that, letting that sink in, letting the reassurance that you're basically okay to sink in. Finding a kind of calm or peace in knowing that you will do what you can, you will tend to the causes, as the proverb puts it, while knowing that you cannot, none of us can, force the results. We can find peace in the knowing of our own sincere efforts in a world in which we have limited influence. Our sincere efforts matter in their own right, whatever the results may be. And there's a peace in that. There's a peace in that that lets us and helps us keep making those sincere efforts. So imagine the year to come in this way, if you can. Imagine approaching it with calm strength and a warm heart, moving through your days, dealing with challenges. Imagine the benefits, get a feeling for, and imagining yourself moving through the year centered in calm strength with a warm heart. Boy, what a world it would be, wouldn't it, if billions of people. There are 8 billion humans already, but certainly a critical mass, a billion or so, give or take a few, moving through their days on this basis. Inner peace, peaceful heart, inner strength, warm-heartedness, a lovingness. Wow, what would it be like if you and I and billions of others, including Susie, could move through the world in this way? Great. Certainly a step in the right direction. Okay, I want to see if there are any questions or comments that have come in. Great. Um, Very important. So I got a comment from Artemis at Artemis Diana. Love the names there. 23 minutes past the hour. What do you do when you cannot really bring anyone to mind who loves and cares for you? When you feel invisible? Very important. So in a little mini workshop like this, I'm saying things to try to evoke or create an experience, such as feeling cared about or feeling warm hearted or feeling calm and peaceful. In life in general, most of the time, we don't do particular things to create those experiences. They are already occurring. And when they are already occurring, that you feel centered or open hearted or strong, let's say, those are opportunities to take in the good, as I put it, to take in those experiences. Now, here and at other times when you're trying to create something, you're trying to call up an experience. What do you do? As Artemis Diana puts it, when nothing comes up, when you can't find that sense, including you can't bring anyone to mind who really loves and cares for you, and when you feel invisible, that's very real. I'm not talking about being phony in any way or denying the hard realities of a person's life. It's very real what Artemis Diana is talking about. What I would say, two things that are hopeful. First, if we actually look carefully, we can almost always find at least one of those 5 ways to feel cared about, to find evidence that we are in fact objectively included or seen or appreciated or liked or loved. And I speak as a longtime therapist. I also speak as a person who did not feel cared about very much when I grew up for various reasons. And I entered in a young adulthood off to college with what felt like a big hole in my heart. Gradually, I looked for things that could really fill it. In almost everyone's life, there are one or more of those 5 actual forms of being cared about. That's hopeful. We look for them. We don't lie about them. If they're not there, they're not there. We might do what we can to connect more with others, but we look for what is actually available to us. And then as best we can, we take it in. That's a very important path of healing and growing. Additionally, second, also very hopeful, even if we cannot get in touch with being cared about coming in from the outside, we can always mobilize our own caring from the inside flowing outward. Simple forms of compassion, kindness, friendliness, respect, support, appreciation, gratitude. These are all natural qualities we can find authentically. And when we find them and they flow outward, they touch us and strengthen us and heal us as they move through us. Because love, broadly, is love, whether it's flowing in or flowing out. And that is full of opportunity. Okay. I think one more comment or question. No, I think it's really good. We're in good shape. So I'm happy. I'm happy, by the way, to be on time, essentially. I would say that in a moment, I'm going to welcome my friend and someone I've learned immensely from, Dr. Kristen Neff. I'll mention again that if you would like to donate to the Global Compassion Coalition, it's tax deductible, and it would really, really help. Not a penny of it goes to me personally. It all goes to the nonprofit organization and to the great work that it's doing and beginning to do even more and more of in this world. And I know that Rachel will put into the chat the donation link for that purpose. Okay, and now I'd like to welcome my friend. I'm really happy to name her as a friend, Professor Kristen Neff. So I think Kristen will be coming on board. Yes, yes. I
Hi.
love it when it works.
It works.
It's magic. You're here. Excellent. Oh, I'm so glad you're here, Kristen. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So glad to be part of this event.
Oh, that's great. I'm going to share a brief biography of you. It totally understates much of your remarkableness, but here we go. This comes from the event page on the Global Compassion Coalition website for this event. Kristen Neff. Kristen is a pioneering self-compassion researcher and author of the book Self-Compassion: The Proven Power of Being Kind to Yourself. And her latest book, Fierce Self-Compassion: How Women Can Harness Kindness to Speak Up, Claim Their Power, and Thrive. In conjunction with her colleague, Dr. Chris Germer, she has also developed an empirically supported training program called Mindful Self-Compassion. Kristen published the first study, by the way, on self-compassion, and you can see her really remarkable and pioneering work. I can say from direct experience that Kristen is one of those people who thoroughly walks her talk, a straight shooter, someone who shot straight my way occasionally and helped me along the way, and someone that I appreciate immensely. So, Kristen, I'm so glad you're here. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. As another way of saying that is someone who's still very flawed and imperfect and needs a lot of compassion, like all of us.
That's really great.
Yeah.
Well, I want to ask you a couple of questions, and then I know you're going to guide us in a self-compassion practice, and then we'll open it up again to people who might have questions for you or comments. So when you look out, so we're coming to the beginning of the new year in the Western Gregorian calendar. I want to obviously name the fact that there are many other calendars. I think about how arbitrary it is with the Earth circling the sun, right?
Yeah.
And, at a certain point in that orbit, we go, okay, the next orbit has started, but, in a circle, obviously, or an ellipse, more exactly, there's no beginning or end. All that said, what's your biggest hope for the coming year? Your next lap around the sun?
Yeah. So one of the things that does give me hope is that there does seem to be an increasing interest in consciousness, expanding our consciousness, compassion. Probably if one were able to measure these things, more people in human history at this point now than ever in human history are interested in such matters and understanding what it means to, think beyond our kind of limited selves.
Yeah.
And I think that's hopeful.
Really hopeful.
For instance, all the psychedelic movement, it's, I'm not part of that movement personally, but just the fact that so many people are drawn to understanding, well, what does it mean to have a type of consciousness that's beyond our normal, everyday, limited consciousness? And I do think that that's one sign of hope.
Yeah, and other forms of mental training, the mindfulness movement, compassion movement, self-compassion. The Global Compassion Coalition is part of that larger movement. Scientific research, we've learned a lot, and that intersection is, as you well know, of modern science and ancient contemplative wisdom. Boom, so fertile and rich.
Yes.
Yeah. What's your biggest concern for the coming year?
Well, if I'm just going to, on a total personal level, I live in Austin, Texas. And this summer, we had over 2 straight months, every single day over 100 degrees. All our plants got fried. So global warming, I mean, there's a lot of unrest in the world, and that's, of course, very disturbing. But global warming, just, it looks like it may be happening faster than even people were predicting. And I'd be lying if I didn't say that I was worried. I am worried.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know that's also, of course, to you,
me
near
too.
and dear to your heart. Yeah. But it's not theoretical anymore. I mean, my plants got fried this summer, and it may be worse next summer. And it's thinking, am I going to have to move? And it's
as you know, the basic science of it is incredibly simple. There are debates about details, but you keep humans dump, you may know this number, 40 to 50 billion tons of carbon dioxide or equivalent gases, greenhouse gases into the sky every year. 50 billion tons a year-ish. And it's inexorable. Those greenhouse gases create a greenhouse that inexorably heat up the planet. One of the projects of the Global Compassion Coalition focuses on climate and sustainability. And I have a particular interest that I'm exploring these days in catalyzing a mass movement of individuals who are doing what they can, people for the planet, in the face of so much resistance from places like Saudi Arabia and Exxon, people doing what they can individually to be net zero themselves, in part by donating a little money to programs that suck carbon dioxide out of the sky to balance what they cannot help but to contribute to the sky each year. Net zero themselves. Individually, it's a way to pick up your garbage, that just is worth doing in its own right. But collectively, at the scale of millions of people, it could actually make a significant dent. So that's a particular interest you may be hearing more about in the days to come.
Wonderful.
Yeah. Hey, last one. What do you do inside yourself to help with your concerns about the world, such as about the climate crisis?
Yeah. So for me, it's a dance. So my latest work is on fierce and tender self-compassion. You might say the dance between acceptance and change. And so one of the comforts of, you might say, taking a larger approach to understanding that at some level, we are all awareness, that our awareness is not exactly the same as what's happening. How we relate to what's happening is slightly different. And so there is comfort in resting in my heart. I'm going to do a practice where we actually do that. Resting, you might say, in the compassion that's holding the suffering. And so that we aren't just the suffering, we're also the love and compassion holding the suffering. So for me personally, that's one way I work with it. At the same time, as you don't want that to lead to complacency. Oh, I'm just the compassion holding the suffering. I don't need to do anything about the suffering. That's not compassionate either. And that's where the fierce self-compassion comes in, this desire to make change. What you're doing, whether it's in the environment or whatever way you can contribute to making positive change in the world. So, just holding that tension and that balance, I think we do need both. I think it was all about just making change, and we're just lost in the contents of what's happening. Well, it's not going to put us in the best mindset to actually make change. So really being able to hold both simultaneously, that's, you might say, the way personally I try to work with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How does that land emotionally inside? When I feel into it, awareness can feel almost inert, just spacious, peaceful, and the fierceness, the engagement, it feels quite active. So how do you experience the twining of them together?
Well, I think it's kind of, I like to use the metaphor of yin and yang. We really do need both, and they need to be both in harmony. Personally, I don't see awareness as colorless. I see awareness as having a warmth to it. You might say love and space. So when awareness is really open and our hearts are open, that awareness is full of love, you might say. And then so if what arises in this loving awareness is suffering, there's this natural impulse to do something about it. And by the way, if you're someone who's totally scientific, you can just think of it as the mammalian caregiving system, right?
Yeah.
We are wired as human beings to want to help.
Yeah.
But in order for us to have that, be able to access that mammalian caregiving system, there has to be a certain sense of safety. Right? So normally, we're negativity bias and problem focused, but both are natural tendencies.
Yeah.
So, finding a way to access both. It is challenging, but the way you just asked me for personally, but also in some ways, what I teach is the moment you're aware of suffering, validate it. This is really hard. The three components of self-compassion to my model is there's awareness of the suffering. There's acknowledgement that we aren't alone in it, that actually it's also our experience is inexorably intertwined with the experience of all other beings. So we aren't alone, we're connected. and then the kindness, which is the warmth.
Mm.
When those arise, I mean, I think these are all qualities of awareness, actually. Awareness isn't just the mindfulness, it's also the interconnectedness, which is the truth of awareness. Our awareness is all interconnected. And then the warmth, which is the care. And then, again, when suffering arises, there's this natural desire to help. Sometimes we can, sometimes we can't.
Mm.
The desire is still there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. That's great. That's great. And knowing that you can sincerely wish, which is a desire, that others not suffer, while accepting that we have limited
control. But
Yeah.
when the intention is there, that intention of goodwill, the intention is, of course, the locomotive driving the train. Your behaviors and then how you interact with others is more likely to bring about the well-being. But we need a lot of equanimity in these times because we aren't in control. And it's hard to sit with, but the reality is we may not be able to derail this train. It's a hard fact.
I know. That's why I emphasized, in the practices that I did before you joined us, the importance of I think when people look out at turbulent times, it paradoxically promotes strong activism to surrender to the ways that we have limited influence.
Yes.
When you accept that, then you do what you can. And I think about this wonderful teaching, then we'll transition to you leading a practice, from Nkosi Johnson. You may have heard of him. He was a boy born with HIV in South Africa in the 1980s. He lived to about 12, and he became a great advocate for people with HIV/AIDS, especially children. And to paraphrase him slightly, he said, "Do all that you can with what you've been given, in the place where you are, with the time that you have."
Yes.
And if that little 12-year-old kid could lay that heavy-duty truth on the table, I feel I'd be lame to not appreciate it.
Yeah. And I suppose that's what, my for whatever reason, the thing I seem to be able to make a small change in is self-compassion.
Yeah.
So I feel that's where my time is best spent.
Yeah.
I can't do everything.
That's
And so really finding what is your calling, where is the place that you can make a contribution, and then really putting your heart into trying to make as big a contribution as you can.
Yeah, that's great. Well, you've made a huge one. You'll be in the history books, truly.
Well,
You will. So how about something experiential here? Can you guide us? And I'll do it with you. I'll receive it. Any kind of practice, and then we'll open it up for questions.
Yeah, so I'm going to lead a practice which it's related to something we teach in the Mindful Self-Compassion program, a practice of breathing compassion in and out. Because if compassion just flows out, we'll become drained. And if it just flows in, well, then we're just isolated. It might even be, kind of too self-focused. So because you have to breathe both in and out, or else you're physically going to die. So it's kind of a nice metaphorical tool to use for the need of compassion to flow in and out, as you were discussing. So I'm going to close my eyes. If you feel comfortable, perhaps closing your eyes. Just settling into your body. See if we can center ourselves in our hearts. Often we're usually centered in our head. It kind of feels like we're centered in that little space behind our eyes. So maybe just taking a moment to let that center drop. Maybe drop from behind your eyes down into your jaw. And down into your neck. And then down into your chest. So you're really feeling your center in your heart center. And then starting to notice that in this heart center, there's also breathing occurring. Your chest is rising and falling. Again, we don't need to breathe intentionally. Just notice from this centered awareness in your chest that breath is happening. So we're connected with our heart, and we're also feeling our breath. And letting the two become intermingled, the love of the heart and the breath. So that as you breathe in, you're really feeling the sense of breathing in compassion and care for yourself. And as you breathe out, you're breathing out compassion and care for the world. Just letting the compassion flow inward on the in-breath. And out to the world on the out-breath. Right, and knowing that it's not like you're creating this compassion or love, it's part of the air we breathe, or you might say it's part of awareness itself. So there's an infinite supply of compassion to flow inward and outward. Another metaphor you can use is like waves of an ocean, washing in and washing out. An infinite ocean of compassion. And know that at any time, if you start to feel like you need a little more focus on the in breath, maybe some suffering or struggling is arising for you, give yourself full permission to primarily breathe in for yourself if that's what you need. To replenish yourself, to care for yourself. And when you feel resourced, making sure you also do breathe out for the world. So allowing your sense of self to become merged with this ocean of compassion flowing in and out. Beyond our small, limited self. So that we're really feeling this larger field of loving awareness. That's one with the entire world. Allowing ourselves just to be this loving awareness, this compassionate awareness. Nothing to do. Just be. And then when you're ready, slowly opening your eyes. A little reset, huh?
Yeah, it's always like cool breeze or warm breeze, just blowing the dust and clutter away. There's a kind of a washing clean, at least for myself. Everybody, as you know, has different experiences and practices, and whatever your experience is, fine. For me, huge reset. Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, it's great. I hope you got some value yourself, offering it.
Oh, I did. That's why we're so blessed in what we do, because when we teach, it's self-replenishing. I find anytime I lead a practice, I'm getting just as much out of it as anyone else may or may not be.
Yeah, that's great. Well, so far I haven't seen any questions or comments coming in, and I invite people. You've got this opportunity to, connect directly with Professor Neff here, and so that's a good one. I'll ask you a question that I think comes up very often for people, which is, what do I do when I feel that I've done something wrong, because I really have done something wrong, small or large. How does that work with compassion for myself?
Yeah. So, and it's important because, we are also talking about taking action, and part of taking action means taking responsibility for ways we may have hurt ourselves or others or the planet, or there's also the cultural pain, historical pain. There's so much. So it's not self-compassionate to not take responsibility, right? If I were just to say, I'm unconditionally worthy, which we are, I believe we're unconditionally worthy, but to say that therefore that means I don't need to take responsibility, that's actually not kind to ourselves as well as others. The kindest thing we can do for ourselves is to take responsibility for ways in which we may have harmed against someone. But to spur the desire for change or repair, coming from a place of love, not shame or blame. So everyone makes mistakes. Everyone harms others. It's just, we've got these limited, again, human brains. We get overtaken by the fight, flight, or freeze instinct. We're just, the nature of being human is to be imperfect. And so what self-compassion does is it allows us to say that our essential worthiness, we're worthy of compassion, even if we have made mistakes. Just because I have made a mistake doesn't mean I am a mistake. But through acknowledging that mistake and holding that mistake with love, with compassion, again, the natural desire, the nature of compassion is to heal. And compassion is not, even though the word self is in compassion, it's not really about self. It's about seeing our humanity that connects us to others. So when I acknowledge a harm I've done to others, the compassion arises for me, and the compassion arises for the person I've harmed. So naturally, there comes this desire to try to repair the mistake, maybe to apologize, to have a talk. And actually, this is not just coming from me. The research really supports this. So just for instance, in one study, they had a bunch of undergraduates. This came out of Berkeley, this study. Think of something they've done where they've harmed someone else. And they gave one group of people a self-compassion induction, with the three components. And the other group, they didn't say anything, which meant they were probably like judging and shaming themselves. And what they found was the group who were told to be self-compassionate were more able to take responsibility for their misdeeds, more able to own it instead of blaming other people, and had a stronger desire to try to repair the situation.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. And it's just really what happens when we access our heart. You might say what we're doing with self-compassion is we're accessing our heart center. Again, you don't have to be woo-woo. If you want to call it your mammalian care center, that's fine.
Yeah.
We're accessing our care center, and that applies not only to ourselves, but also to others. And it's a more effective motivator of change, because when we're shaming ourselves and we're blaming ourselves, we're actually activating our sympathetic nervous system. We're more freaked out, to use a non-scientific term.
Yeah.
Our vision is more limited. We can't see the broader perspective. We make poor choices. So it's actually not as effective. So self-criticism is not as effective a motivator of change as self-compassion is. And again, there's a ton of research to support that.
That's great. A bunch of great questions have popped in. So we're going to do this as a lightning round.
Okay, great.
Super short, if you could.
Sure.
And all that was great. Super great. So how long does it take to develop self-compassion? Should this be a daily practice?
Yeah. So luckily, again, the mammalian caregiving system, or the ability to be compassionate, most of us do have a lot of experience with it towards others, at least towards our loved ones or our good friends, maybe our family members. So it's not so much learning the skill as it is remembering and giving ourselves permission to do a U-turn and using it inward. So, the habits of self-criticism, they're actually pretty ingrained through evolution. So don't beat yourself up for beating yourself up. So there are strong, brain forces that lead us to go into this reaction, fight, flight, or freeze. We turn it inward. So, it's only just a moment away. It's only a moment away. The moment we remember, oh yeah, I could have compassion for whatever just arose. It can be instantaneous. So in that sense, it doesn't take a long time. But to build the habit, any brain changes, through neuroplasticity, we do need to practice it so that our immediate reaction isn't to beat ourselves up, but more and more to be self-compassionate.
Yeah, I would suggest to people to take a minute or 1 to 5 minutes a day and listen to one of Kristen Neff's meditations.
Right.
Listen, you got a lot of them, and we'll put some of them maybe we have stuff on the Global Compassion Coalition about this. A little bit can really add up.
It is a practice, partly because it goes against some of our natural brain tendencies. But again, the good news is self-compassion is natural. Self-compassion isn't so natural. So.
Yeah, but we can develop it as a habit. We move from states to traits, and then just like you're saying, that's great. All right. How can compassion for others and ourselves help us to bear the terrible conflicts that are happening in the world? I'm paraphrasing a question from Madeline.
Yeah. This is where we now more than ever, so one of the essential elements of compassion, as you know, is the sense of shared humanity. The opposite of compassion is when we dehumanize people.
Yeah.
Right. And so in these conflicts, there's this natural tendency to want to say there are good people or bad people. There are, without a doubt, good and bad acts, harmful and non-harmful acts, absolutely. But the human beings who do these behaviors, we're all human beings that, given our conditioning and our circumstances, at some level trying to do the best we can. And so the ability to kind of separate behaviors, we certainly need to condemn certain behaviors, but all human beings are worthy of a compassionate response. And so I think this is where
we can separate compassion from approval. That's a huge point.
And behavior from the intrinsic worth of people.
Great. Great distinction too.
And that's where I think compassion helps. Even someone who's done something that maybe we need some fierce self-compassion and say, no, that's not okay what you're doing. Stop. But you're still a human being worthy of compassion and consideration.
Right. And in all that, so Jess had the question about how long it takes to learn to be compassionate. And Horse Sense Healing, love that, talks about how can we be compassionate without burning out?
We're actually, Chris Germer and I are coming out with a book on burnout next September, because what we know is that there's actually no such thing as compassion fatigue. There's only
Exactly.
sympathy fatigue. We
Exactly.
talked about this. Compassion itself activates the reward centers of the brain.
That's right.
So you absolutely you especially need compassion
That's right.
when you're feeling burnt out. You need to, I would say, first resource yourself. If it's
Yeah.
just one way, then you will be drained. But resourcing yourself in part for the pain of caring for others and caring about the world, and then also caring about other people, and also drawing boundaries is an important part of compassion. I know you like to talk about learning to say no is sometimes the most compassionate thing you can do for yourself and others.
Yeah.
And so I think compassion is essential to preventing burnout. If we don't have it, it's almost inevitable that we will burn out. I believe.
That's so great. What a great distinction. Phew. We're coming to the end.
Okay.
I want to invite people once again to donate, if you like, to the nonprofit tax-deductible donation Global Compassion Coalition.
Yeah,
Kristen and I do
you're
not
doing
get a
such great
penny.
work, Rick. I'm so grateful to you for putting this together and putting compassion in action. It's just, it's wonderful that you're taking the lead in doing this. So
Oh, I appreciate it. It's been so heartening for me, Kristen, at a time that's easy to despair,
yeah,
to recognize that we don't know, but it's factually true that there are millions of people
yeah,
like you and elsewhere, like Susie and Malawi, around the world
yeah,
doing things to make it better. What we need to do is more join together
yes,
so that the sum of the whole is greater than the sum of the parts, to be
yeah,
able to be big enough, to be strong enough, to start driving systemic changes, including related to things like climate. But it's heartening to really appreciate that there's so many people moved by compassion that
yes,
are trying to make this world a better place.
yes.
Yeah. So if you'd like to donate to the Global Compassion Coalition, Rachel will tell you how to do it.
Great.
I also want to thank you, Kristen, for being here. And people can find more about you and your work just by Googling your name or
Yes,
self-compassion.
self-compassion
You'll pop to the
on
top of the
website. Yeah,
stack in the search, as you should.
I got in early. Yeah.
Yeah, well, early and long too. You know, you've got a really great, long, generative career. Thank you so much for being here. And I apologize that we couldn't get to every question that came in. There was so much wonderful that came in from people in the chat we couldn't speak to. And anyway, thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Kristen.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. And thank our ancestors for all that they went through to help us evolve a compassionate heart. Okay, thank you. Blessings to everybody. Take good care. Bye-bye.